Welcome back to another weekly preview show here on the FFPC YouTube. Week 3, me and Terp are back. Terp, slightly better week for both of us last week. We're trying to deliver. The plays of the week have just been tough for us. But last week we've been money giving the people who not to start. Last week you said Tom Brady, I said Mike Evans. Both of those guys struggled against us. I mean, Mike Evans, like I wouldn't honestly. I really wish we had predicted the ejection because it wasn't the craziest thing to predict. Like, it was there. It was there for the taking.
I just saw it coming. I mean, that game was just an ugly slugfest, and you don't mess with Tom Brady.
Yeah, you don't mess with Tom Brady. I mean, someone said like Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans might be truly like two guys who like genuinely hate each other in the NFL.
Just
maybe the only two.
Ring and just let's go.
There we go. Other ones that we got right. You told the people Josh Palmer, don't forget about him, and that wasn't looking good. But the late touchdown drive did deliver for you. Bailed you out there.
A lot of bettors out too. Don't forget about that.
Plus 4.5, and then our plays of the week though: Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk. It's just tough. But on to the next week. On to this week, we're going to try to deliver. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get there, but let's just real quick, kind of as we did last week, kind of review week 2, our biggest takeaways. I want to start off. We said on the show, one of our quick hitters was who'd do better, Kyle Pitts or Mark Andrews. And you said something along the lines of, if Kyle Pitts has another terrible week, fantasy Twitter, just high stakes fantasy in general is going to explode. 2 for 19 again.
They've exploded. An idiot coach coming out. They were trying to win games. Like, come on, man. You got your best player by a large margin. Yeah, Drake London's pretty solid. He's looked very good this year. But come on. How many targets has this guy got? Are you trying to win games or not? Because if you're not, that's fine. But all the hype in the preseason about how we're going to feature him, move him around, do all this stuff, you've seen none of it. So I don't understand what's going on. It's definitely worry time. You're never going to sit Kyle Pitts. I mean, because the tight end position is very suspect right now outside of a couple guys. But, I mean, it's definitely – Twitter is losing their mind right now because Kyle Pitts was first-round pick in a lot of FFPC drafts.
Yeah, two sides to like the story is one, a lot of people were throwing around Mark Andrews stats from the start of last season when he slightly better, but he only had 8 catches, like something like 90 yards, and he finished with just a phenomenal season. So there's that side of it. But then there's also the flip side is Pitts' role through 2 games. Like Andrews was getting targeted. You kind of knew Pitts is, they're essentially using him as a decoy.
100%.
For London. So what's your concern level out of 10 if you as a Pitts owner?
It's just so hard because I've never been an Arthur Smith guy. Mm-hmm. When they hired him, I didn't like it. I thought there were better options out there at the time. I'm probably like 60% concerned.
Okay.
I'm not as heavy in the Kyle Pitts as some people I know, but I still have him on plenty of best ball teams and plenty of higher stakes teams. So it's definitely a worry. I would say 60% is a good 6 out of 10.
And it's always a tough spot because if you're trying to move him, there's you're not getting the value back. I think the best bet, and I think what most people are going to be doing is just you hold on to him because the talent is, I think, going to win out. Look what he did last year under Arthur Smith. But I do worry that maybe it's a little more inconsistent rather than a higher floor than we expected. I saw a tweet, and it's so true. The same coach who unlocked Cordero Patterson after 8 years of misuse telling me that this guy can't use a 6'4" tight end who runs a 4.4. Just absolutely nuts. But you talked about kind of the tight end position weird. So my question I was going to ask you, and I haven't asked you this, I haven't mentioned it. I mentioned that I was going to ask you something because I wanted your just initial reaction. Mm-hmm. Can someone win the FFPC main event or football guys without one of Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, and I'll even say Darren Waller?
It's a popular question that I've seen this week. I still say the answer is yes. I think it's pretty convincingly yes, too, because you look at all the, the other options. You didn't draft Travis Kelce. Fine. You could have drafted Stephon Diggs. You could have drafted Justin Jefferson. You could have drafted Jamar Chase, who all have been, very solid this year. Mark Andrews. I mean, the options are a little slim when it comes to the second round, I guess you could say. CeeDee Lamb has been a bust through 2 weeks. Devontae Adams was really good week 1, but disappeared last week. And the end of that, but you also have DeAndre Swift. You also have Saquon Barkley at the end, who've both been very solid. So my answer is still yes. I feel like you can figure it out as the season goes on. Is it going to be easy? No. especially when you have guys like Andrews putting up 30, Kelsey putting up 30, Waller having a pretty solid start to the season. But besides that, it's just been a questionable position. Hawkinson's been nothing. Goddard's been okay. But Higbee, way down there has been pretty solid, especially with all the targets he's been getting. You'll see guys emerge. I think eventually George Kittle will be coming back maybe this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think you can win. I think that's blown out of proportion. Quarterback, that might be a different topic.
Do you think that you have to have Allen or Hurts or Mahomes
Herbert? I would say Allen, Hurts. I would say you got to have one of the top 5 guys, or you got to be very, very good somewhere else. St. Brown, Diggs. Like on my main event, one of my main event teams, I have Diggs and St. Brown. So it's great. They put up 75 points last week. Yeah. That's all awesome and everything. Also have Bateman. Also have Cortland Sutton. CEH. But my quarterback, Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm. Yikes. Yeah. I like how you threw in CEH
there. The disaster of what I'm doing this week is when you start looking at the waivers, didn't pick up a quarterback week 1 because I didn't believe anything was wrong with Trey Lance. Obviously, with
you can't predict injuries.
The rain game, obviously, never would think. And I'm not a guy who's carrying a backup for no reason. Well, that kind of didn't work out. So now this week, Jimmy G will be my starting quarterback. Not excited about it at all, but it could be if Denver figures it out. Could be a nice game. But also, I picked up Dak this week. So hopefully Dallas just rushes him back. It was cheap, wasn't expensive. I saw him go for 200 plus in a couple leagues. Probably going to be looking at Malik Willis soon, just figuring out a week-by-week thing. It's definitely not ideal, especially when you have Hurts, Jackson, and all those guys. Allen putting up monster numbers week after week. But we'll figure it out. Got to keep grinding.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall take on the question is yes. The answer is yes, a team can win without the big names at quarterback or tight end. But it's very hard to. You're going to need to craft an elite team. Definitely very hard. So I think that's going to be interesting.
Especially overall. Can you win your league? Absolutely. But overall is a different animal because if you are going against a Jackson Andrews team or an Allen Diggs team, you just see what they just did. I mean, that could be something you're way behind on, but you could win doing anything. It's just a question of if you got Curtis Samuel week 1 on waivers. If you spent money on Rex Burkhead, you're in some trouble. Yeah. Because that didn't work out.
No, and it's interesting, and we can talk forever about this. I know we want to get into our little segments, so we will go quick. But through 2 weeks, you mentioned Curtis Samuel is probably the biggest, maybe Garrett Wilson if he wasn't known, but waivers haven't been great compared to some past years. Like no big names or guys that you can reasonably project over the course of the season helping you.
Rex Burkhead, Taysom Hill. I mean, they were huge, ads last week. Both were duds. Jordan Mason was an ad last week. Hasn't. Yeah. I mean, if anything, it helped him. Like if you got him last week, you probably got him a lot cheaper than he would have went for this week
with the TDP injury. Yep.
But besides that, quarterbacks you could say Jared Goff and Wentz have been good ads, but I mean, you would have to be really, really Dak or Lance, obviously, to be really, reaping the benefits of those two. I don't think you'd be sitting the Burrows of the world or the Cars of the world yet for those two. Maybe now, but yeah, free agency has been tough. I mean, I think there's been some sneaky players that Juwan Johnson, who's playing a ton of snaps, definitely featured, a lot more than people thought he was, with the Saints. But you're right. It's been Curtis Samuel and a bunch of unknown.
Yeah. And real quick, I just want your quick thoughts on these major week 2 storylines. Obviously, Trey Lance goes down. We were big Lance guys, so that was tough for us. But Jimmy G, how much? I think it's even as a Lance guy, it helps Debo a lot.
Definitely helps.
And Ayuk.
Debo does not help me because I've been off the Debo train because I figured it would move to Ayuk. Mm-hmm. That is very questionable right now. And if anything, the TDP injury, that doesn't help. Debo might get more rushes. Yeah. You might see the same Debo you had last year. So for guys who got Debo at a good value, you could be reaping the benefits. That shows you how everything changes. You could be reaping the benefits really quickly, in some good matchups coming up.
Yeah, I do think that Jimmy G, as much as I like Lance, I think Lance inherently hurt maybe Debo because it takes away some of those rushing attempts, and both Debo and Ayuk as pass catchers, less accurate quarterback. We know what we're getting with Jimmy G, so I think that's interesting for fantasy.
Yep.
Broncos struggles last week on the show. I kind of said, you know what, their red zone concerns were bad. I understood that on Monday Night Football, but I thought the offense looked good against the Seahawks. Complete opposite against the Texans. They're bad. You were a big Russ guy. Sutton was great, but is this offense, is Nate Hackett doesn't look like he's up for the job. Russ looks, not saying he's washed, but doesn't, kind of has continued what he left off last year, struggling. Is this offense might not just be a fantasy kind of wasteland, and God knows what to expect.
I don't think I would get to the wasteland thing yet, because Javonte Williams and Sutton are going to be, you got no worries there. If you have Russell Wilson, you definitely have some questions every week until you see something. Because, like you said, the coach doesn't seem like he has a brain right now. Nope. I mean, that disaster against Seattle, they easily could have lost the Texans and then totally been a disaster. They figured out a way to win that game, but just the play calling, like 3rd and 1 option to a backup tight end, not even featuring Albert O in the red zone. Like, I don't understand. Sutton is going to be Sutton. Sutton's going to put up his numbers, especially if Judy misses this week. He's probably going to get 15, 20 targets. So I'm not worried about him. Not worried about Javonte, but stop with this Melvin Gordon stuff. Give Javonte the ball. He's the most talented. Let your guys play. I don't understand that. Watching that, mostly all that game when they played Seattle. Javonte's just so much better. Just so much better. Just stop it.
Wasteland was an exaggeration. I get more just the unpredictability of that team.
Everybody else
based on their struggles, and also Javonte's usage is concerning. Yeah, and
he's playing a ton of snaps, but nothing last week. A big 0.
I mean, inherently, I've seen it floated, but I think it makes sense. Is the sooner the Broncos maybe admit to themselves that Nathaniel Hackett was an attempt to just get Aaron Rodgers, and that was Aaron Rodgers' guy. He doesn't come. They got Russ. Like, oh, maybe it works, but Hackett might just not be ready for this.
It could be a one and done for him. I could.
Yeah, they have a window.
He's not getting any younger, and they just paid a ton of money for him. They're gonna have to figure it out quickly. I mean, I still think they'll be okay, and somebody will emerge besides those two. But I mean, Judy obviously is that guy, but we don't know this week if he's going to play. But watch their.
It's rough.
It's very questionable right now.
Continuing to talk about the struggles. Monday night, we saw 2 highly drafted running backs, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, put up like 40-something combined yards. Just terrible. Now, granted, I go back and forth. We were both kind of on our live draft coverage off Derrick Henry. So we've kind of already addressed that in the past. More so Dalvin, we were expecting the usage. He looked good against the Packers. Was that just playing a tough defense, or do you look at what DeAndre Swift did against the Eagles and you're like, why didn't the Vikings and Dalvin do that? What's your concern level there?
Being at the game, being heavily intoxicated, I have no idea what the game plan was. It just seemed like they just had no clue what was coming. Eagles weren't doing anything crazy. Yeah, they mixed it up with some blitzes, but Kirk Cousins is in prime time is a disaster. A new coach, yapping his mouth off all week, you think would have been ready for anything the Eagles threw at him, and he was not ready at all. Dalvin Cook was an afterthought. It was pretty much throw the ball to Justin Jefferson and hope. Irv Smith made some plays, dropped a touchdown to change the game, especially early when it was still in reach. But Adam Thielen, where has he been? What's going on there? I expected a lot. KJ Osborne he's cuttable now. Adam Thielen ain't far off. I mean, it's throw the ball to Justin Jefferson and hope, I guess, at this point. I thought the Vikings were going to be a much bigger challenge. The Eagles were leaps and bounds better than them. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a homer. On Monday, just so much better in every aspect of the game. That's with no points scored between both teams in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, they were, I think we said beforehand, I said the Eagles are the best team in the NFC right now, and I don't think it's especially close. So that's why I'm holding off on kind of the Minnesota panic maybe that we saw, because they played a good team. They're playing Detroit now. If these struggles continue against Detroit, then you're in full panic mode.
This is where I think this Vegas just knows. Like, if you look at the line this week, Minnesota -6.5, just getting whooped on Monday night. Lions coming off a big win. The line's weird. Line doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, Lions are like good. Like
they are good, but the Lions telling you that Vegas thinks the Vikings are going to win this in big.
I do think the Lions defense isn't good.
No,
because granted,
players obviously Hutchinson.
Yeah,
but they're still so young.
Okuda's been good, but no, the offense just seems like it gives up a lot of points, and I trust. But that's what I'm saying. If the Vikings offense struggles against that offense, the defense of the Lions, it's been shredded by Philly and then Washington in the second half. Yeah, that offense might not be as good as we expected. My last question for you actually comes from my younger brother. He wanted me to ask you. It's more of a quick hitter phase, but he was just wondering, rookie receiver, who would you rather have, Garrett Wilson or Drake London?
Garrett Wilson.
And is that just because you're not?
I'm not really. I've been a Drake London hater, but I came off that late. I mean, I made a bet early: Drake London versus Christian Watson with a good friend of mine, and that's not looking good.
Well, yeah,
But
you can pay him now.
I probably should just, I either, just pay him now or try to buy it out early or something. He's probably not going to do that because he doesn't have a lot of good luck against me. So I'm just hoping that, something changes and maybe probably not happening, but I just think Garrett Wilson's a baller. I mean,
Okay.
You saw last week. I mean, just that's what you could get down the road. I mean, I didn't expect it this early. I expected more Elijah Moore than Wilson, but that team, if they could find a quarterback with those two, geez, Brees Hall and those two.
I feel like we'd much rather have Joe Flacco at this point than Zach Wilson coming back.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy wise, yes. I mean, Zach Wilson's on a tight leash. I mean, I don't know. The Jets coming off that big win, like coming out of nowhere, like they're going to try. Wilson has to play. I mean, that's obvious, but Flacco, especially in good game scripts like last week, just throwing the ball around.
Yeah. I mean, my player of the week was Elijah Moore. I thought they'd be down, he'd throw around, but Garrett Wilson seemed like his go-to guy, which
is infuriating.
Stunk. It is infuriating. I mean, I texted you. We said it on one of our shows, one of the draft shows. Maybe we should be paying a bit more attention to the top 10 pick as a receiver, and lo and behold, we should have. So let's jump into our little segments. As always, we start. Friends don't let friends start. Just give me a player who's who's in the top 25 in projected points at their position that you think is going to disappoint this week.
I'm going to go back to the well in Tampa Bay and go with Leonard Fournette.
Oh,
I just don't.
RB3 this week.
Yeah. I just feel like it has to be Leonard Fournette. I don't see how that offense moves the ball. I think that game could be another ugly, 13-10 type of setup. They have the two of us playing receiver this week in Tampa Bay. Yes. No Mike Evans, no Godwin. Gage questionable. Julio's probably not playing. They just signed Cole Beasley off the streets, who I don't know if
Scotty
he'll be ready.
Miller.
Yeah, they got Alex and Dave playing tight end for him. Like it's not a fantasy goodness that most people thought Tampa Bay would be this year. That might change down the road when they get healthy, but for now, Leonard Fournette is my guy that I'm not starting.
See, it's interesting. Normally, I'd say, oh, what's a good thing because they're just going to pound the rock with Leonard Fournette. But they don't have the offensive line. They've been depleted. So
we tried that last week, and it didn't really work.
Yeah, I mean, he still put up an okay number, but for sure they struggled. I mean, we kind of said that the Cowboys, it surprised us how good they were with all the injuries. But Leonard Fournette, I believe, is RB3 this week, projected years. I'm going to go with a guy that we just kind of talked about briefly, waiver wire, Curtis Samuel. And my reasoning is we saw what the Eagles defense did to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is way better than Carson Wentz.
They're coming after him this week.
And my reasoning is my worry with making this prediction is the garbage time that's going to happen. But I genuinely think it's the point where Wentz is going to be so bad that the Commanders' offense, it's going to just be turnovers. They're not going to be able to drive the ball. Right. I think that game's a demolition. Just the Eagles are just going to destroy them.
Another line that's very nice. Very nice if you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, I mean,
road. They were favored by 3 at home against the Vikings. Vegas, when they put lines out like this, like Minnesota and Philly, I'm not a betting expert in any way, but watch those 2 games this week.
Yeah, the Curtis Samuel would surprise me when I make it is wide receiver 19 this week projected, which just seems like 14.3 projected points. I just go back to Bradbury, Slay. I know he's been good.
Chauncey Gardner. I mean,
yeah, I just don't. I think it's not even really a reflection on Samuel as much as is Wentz. I could put Wentz here too. Wentz is the projected QB 10 this week. Do not start Carson Wentz against the Eagles.
I mean, it's not. I don't think Carson Wentz is the worst start in the world.
I think
he said garbage time. Like, look at Joe Flacco last week.
Look at Kirk Cousins last week.
Kirk Cousins, yeah, that's true.
There's the flip side. That's my point. Is I think the Eagles, there's no garbage time because they're going to be so locked in on.
Oh, they're coming. They're coming. The only fear you have with the Eagles this week is if they just fall themselves after 2, nice wins.
No, this Eagles team is different.
Come out 37-17, just put a whooping on them.
Yeah. So again, we both said it. Garbage time is maybe the reason you're starting them. I just think the Eagles are from start to finish just dominating this Commanders team. So Curtis Samuel and Carson Wentz inherently. My friends don't let friends start. Yours is Leonard Fournette. All right, moving on. Our next one, the 2-touchdown guarantee. Who's your guy for the 2-touchdown guarantee this week? You had DJ Moore last week. He got 1.
Yeah.
Which is, again, as I said, bold choosing a guy who never gets touchdowns. DJ Moore.
I was very confident on DJ Moore and Ayuk. And Ayuk was on his way. When Trey Lance got hurt, it kind of soured it. But
yeah, I mean, DJ Moore, you got 1. You'll take it. Pat on the back. People listen to you.
I'm trying to get W's. I don't look for pats on the back.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
This week, my 2-touchdown guarantee. I saw, what happened in that Jets game, coming back. The Browns, obviously, Nick Chubb had a big game. I'm going the opposite way. T. Higgins, 2-touchdown guarantee. I feel like the Bengals get healthy. I feel like Joe Burrow, Chase, Higgins all have big games. The secondary, obviously Sauce Gardner, the rookie, is playing solid, but I feel like
Amari Cooper had a game.
I feel like if it's not this week for Cincinnati, if you start off losing to Trubisky, Rush, and Flacco, you're done. You just up in the loss column. I feel like Cincinnati is a game this week where I feel like that game could be one of the highest scoring games on the slate. So my 2-touchdown guarantee is T. Higgins.
Yeah, my 2-touchdown guarantee is, I told you beforehand, I'm kind of regretting it. Wide receiver 36 this week, Rashad Bateman, playing the Patriots. I worry. I have concerns. Non-Lamar. Dobbins may be back. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I know Bateman has just had ridiculous efficiency with his receptions. I understand New England's a stingy defense. I don't think they're great. I mean, Tyreek, Waddle both had solid performances against them. I just think it's Bateman is Lamar's guy. He's shown the big playability. I think he gets in the end zone twice this week against a tough New England defense.
I hope you're right.
It's simply I'm looking at it. He's the weapon there. Him and Lamar and Andrews are really it. And I think Bateman, he seems like a guy to me that's just going to end up with a bunch of touchdowns and low reception numbers maybe, and all the yardage comes on those big chunk plays. I think Bateman, I can see that. Yeah. So Bateman's my 2-touchdown guarantee. You all must have forgot. Last week I was Jordan Mason. That was rough. As we said earlier, Josh Palmer was yours. You almost forgot simple. Any player outside of the top 35 of projected points at their individual position that we think's due for a solid great, or I said great here. Solid week we count, but let's go great week. Who you got?
I'm going to go. I don't know if this really counts, but I'm still going to go with it. I think this is a week where Tony Pollard takes the next step to just put Zeke in the coffin.
Here's the deal, real quick. We say top 35, but positionally it's different. Running backs, we can move them up because running backs.
Like if you're a 0 running back guy, if you had a ton of receivers and you have Tony Pollard, 9 rushes last week, 4 catches, he had a touchdown rushing. I just feel like Dallas. I mean, he's got to be the guy. Zeke is dust. I know you've been close on, but Zeke is just a complete dust ball. Derrick Henry we talked about. I don't think he's dusty at all. I just don't think he's just in the offense that is going to make it successful this year, with the questions of quarterback and receiver. But I feel like Tony Pollard takes the next step this week, and Giants, they're okay defensively, but I think Dallas might win that game. And then you're going to start getting a quarterback controversy.
Yeah. I don't
know. Jerry Jones today, that idiot. Yeah. You don't pay a guy $180 million that they paid Dak Prescott, and then you're going to say, hey, he's not going to be the starter. Stop it.
Yeah, the Giants may be one of the worst 2-0 teams, and I like the story. I like Dabble, but the games they've won are
love Saquon. But come on, stop being cute. Get Kadarius Toney on the field. We're trotting out Richie James and David Stills. They're not good.
Oh, funny that you mentioned Richie James. Y'all must have forgot. Wide receiver 48 this week, not Richie James. It's Chris Olave. Don't worry. But my reasoning is no. My reasoning is look at some of these wide receiver 2-3s on teams, what they've done against the Panthers.
Great matchup, too.
Yeah, I think Olave is a great matchup. Richie James had 5 for 50, which isn't great. And Donovan Peoples-Jones 6 for 60 and a near touchdown. Again, Chris Olave is way better than both of those guys.
And Andy Dalton, who's not a bad deep ball thrower, possibly this week if Jameis doesn't play.
Possibly. And even if Jameis does play, Jameis slings it around regardless of the back. So the talk of Twitter this past week was like Chris Olave's air yards. There is something there. He's, again, 11th overall pick. We kind of always talk about how maybe we overlook Wilson's draft slot, right? Chris Olave is kind of the same. Dude's a baller. We know that. The Saints are using him a ton. He's getting targeted a ton. He's playing a matchup that has been really generous to wide receiver 2s, 3s on the team. Again, I think receivers are so deep, so it's sometimes deceiving when you hear wide receiver 48. But to me, that's way too low. Chris Olave should be in people's lineups this week against the Panthers at 9.7 projected points. He's going to have way higher than that. So he's my y'all must have forgotten. I don't think anyone's forgetting about him, but just low projections. I like it there how you really thought I was about to say Richie James. Come on.
I was scared for a second there. I mean, if you did, you never know. I mean,
no, we do know. Richie James will never be picked on any segment in this show from me.
You just never know. These things get weirder and weirder every week. You got to throw a little wild card out there every once in a while.
The next segment is the one that the comments have been getting us on, because rightfully this is what we ride our like. This is our achievement. Like this is the claim to fame, and we've been terrible. Last week was Elijah Moore for me.
Brandon Ayuk.
Right idea. We've talked about it briefly.
I don't think the process is wrong at all. How many picks did we do? Allen Robinson. Was he week 1 for you?
He was week 1 for me.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton was mine. Who he did okay, but I'm not looking for okay, obviously. My play of the week this week is definitely out of the ordinary.
Ooh.
I think this is the week where we see the Treylon Burks experience take off.
Yeah.
In Tennessee.
Okay.
They know he's clearly the best receiver on that team.
That first drive against the Bills game made me feel some kind of way because he got like 3 quick catches.
Stop with this Robert Woods stuff. Stop with this Kyle Phillips stuff. Austin Hooper's a dust bucket. Derrick Henry, stop. This is the week Treylon Burks takes the next step that you've been seeing from Drake London, from Wilson, from Olave, from guys like that. He is my play of the week, and definitely probably get criticized on this if it goes haywire. But
Terp, your issue is that you come on here, and not only do you consider them play of the week, you also throw in the unnecessary. I could see him finishing top 5 this week. If you don't, you might not get.
It was going to happen last week. Trey Lance breaks his foot. Yeah, the game flow really wasn't in favor, but you had a nice catch in the first drive. Second drive, he had another catch. And then Trey Lance broke his thing and everything just.
You see Jimmy G smiling? I noticed that instantly while I was watching it. This man's like in the huddle smiling. I'm like, okay.
I definitely wasn't smiling. I came inside after my daughter's baby shower, and I'm like, my buddy's
congratulations.
Thank you.
As always, yeah.
He texted me. He was like, Wyatt, what's going on? I thought he called me to be like, hey, Ayuk just scored. Yeah, you just saw one money. He was like, why is he on a cart? I'm like, oh no.
So it was very odd watching Red Zone because they cut away. And like right when they cut away, you heard the announcer in the game going, "Oh no!" And you're like, "Wait, what's going on?" Because it looked just like a normal run. And then Scott Hansen's like, "Oh, bad news here in San Francisco. Trey Lance on a cart." And I'm like, "Well, there goes my matchups this week." But
it's dusty.
Yeah, it's rough. So your play of the week, Treylon Burks. And I was going to say my one thing is, I am so confident that Burks is going to deliver on kind of what we were saying in the preseason about how maybe he starts a bit slow, but he's going to assert himself. Like I can just see it. They're making a solid effort to get him the ball. Right?
The stubbornness of the coach is the only thing you worry about. Like
but even then, Tannehill targets him a ton for his limited snaps. If the snaps go up,
they got whacked on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
They got to start moving the ball. There's something on offense has to change.
That division is bad. Colts, Titans, Jaguars, Texans. Yeah.
Colts are going to find a way to probably win it just because by accident.
No business.
Jeez. None of them teams have a chance.
So you gave a rookie receiver for your play of the week. We didn't discuss their plays of the week prior. I'm going with a rookie receiver. Wide receiver 21 this week, Drake London. Playing the Seahawks. His target share has been crazy. He's looked great. Again, the matchup is fantastic.
Kyle Pitts right now.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith loves to use him. Now, I could totally see it be this week that Kyle Pitts eases people's concerns. He goes off, but Drake London seems to kind of have a set floor that maybe we weren't expecting with this offense, that he's kind of getting the target share. Mariota hasn't looked great, but I don't think he's looked maybe as bad as even I anticipated. No. I'm all over Drake London this week. I continue kind of the the push that he's on to establish himself as like the clear best rookie receiver in this fantasy class.
Right now, I was wrong on him through 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, again, wide receiver 21, so it's not the craziest play of the week for me, but I think he's due for a big week because even though he's been very solid, hasn't had the monster week. Like I could foresee against the Seahawks team a monster week and then the hype is really going to explode.
Suspect corners, I could definitely see it.
Yeah. Terp, Traylon Burks, myself, Drake London, 2 rookie receivers who are play of the weeks. Terp, real quick, we're going to end as always with the quick hitters. I'm just going to ask you. More passing yards this week, not fantasy points, just more passing yards this week. Kirk Cousins against the Lions or Matt Stafford at the Cardinals?
Kirk Cousins.
I'm going to go with Stafford. Kirk Cousins scares me. I know it's not prime time. I know it's against the Lions, but I think they could go up and maybe just they run the ball more. They try and get Dalvin cooking. More fantasy points this week. Joe Mixon against the Jets or Austin Eckler against the Jaguars?
Joe Mixon. I feel like this is the week. Cincinnati, all their guys get there.
I'm just going to keep this. By the way, we're 2 in. I went 5-0 last week. You went 3-2, 5-0 last week. We're both 5-4 on these. I'm going to go with Austin Eckler.
All the wins we can get.
Jaguars haven't looked bad, but I still don't think they're great. Eckler, the usage is concerning a lot. That last drive really saved him.
Saved him.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing what they said with Eckler, which is kind of like when people were like they said that they're trying to reduce his workload, get less touches. But
Kelly and Sony are just they're
bad. Yeah, but when Eckler's just not built to get as many carries as he did. But I'm gonna go with Eckler. I think he's gonna have a big opportunity there, assuming Herbert plays, which he seems on pace to. More fantasy points: CD against the Giants on Monday night, or Brandon Cooks at the Bears.
I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks.
Oh, we're going to disagree. I'm going to go with CD. I think CD. Cooper Rush I don't think he's bad, but better backup quarterback than I anticipated.
He's slinging. I'll give him that. I feel like that game's going to be ugly.
I mean, this will get posted on Friday, so the Thursday game will happen. Just Monday and Thursday night this week, at least, just don't look fun.
I love these Thursday night games personally because you don't really, unless you have Deontay Johnson or Nick Chubb, Freiermuth,
Kareem
Harris, obviously, but
there's about five.
You ain't starting Amari Cooper at this point. You ain't starting Donovan Peoples-Jones.
And Joe probably not.
You ain't starting George Pickens right now. Claypool, none of those guys. You're not starting either quarterback. So these are the games where it's like, all right, don't even worry about it. Just don't watch unless you have one of those guys because there's really no point. This is going to be a football game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with CD though. I think against that Giants secondary, he goes off. Travis Kelce over under 22 fantasy points, so that's FFPC scoring.
I'm gonna take the slight under.
Okay, I'm gonna go over against the Colts. That Colts defense just hasn't looked good. If Evan Ingram can put up solid numbers against them, Travis Kelce's gonna go over. I'm gonna go over, and then last one for you. More fantasy points this week. Playing the Bills, Tyreek or Waddle.
Can I hope for none?
No.
If I have to pick, it's Waddle.
Okay. I'm going Waddle too. I don't think
that's what we agreed on.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is the first one we agreed on. There we go. We were in agreement the last couple of weeks for the most part. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Waddle. That game, I like what Miami. I like Mike McDaniel. I do think they struggle a bit, but Waddle seems a little more.
That game's gonna be interesting because everybody's expecting just up and back, up and back, up and back.
No,
I don't think you're going to see it. I mean, I feel like you see a little bit of what you saw on Thursday.
If I'm going to be honest, I think it's a good game to a point, and the Bills pull away. Similar to not maybe like the Thursday game where the Rams were kind of like, how are they in this game? I think it's a kind of like second half Bills pull away, but Dolphins are legit.
Dolphins are definitely a good football team. I'm still not really a big Tua guy, but coming off that game, 6 touchdowns.
I am not a member of Tuanon. Not a member of Tuanon, but
we'll see.
My friend's a diehard Dolphins fan, so I've always been like, you guys juice Tua way too much. Like, stop over exaggerating.
I mean, they have probably the best receiving core in football. You could argue. I mean, there's other ones.
Yeah. I mean, what?
Those two are just alphas.
Yeah, it's and the creative coach that they have.
Creative coach who's not really caring about the run much and getting them guys the ball. I mean, it's fantasy, goodness right now.
Yeah,
So
that Miami offense could be fantasy goodness for the season.
it could
They
be.
should be more than likely. It's just a matter of, is Tua part of that, or is it just really Tyreek and Waddle? But
I feel like
theoretically,
teams are going to
Tyreek and
start
Waddle.
adjusting to a little bit more.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean I want to see. This is an early test. Might be the game. Probably is the game of the week, at least off the top of my head.
And you could say Green Bay, Tampa Bay, but that's going to be
No, like storyline wise, Green Bay, Tampa,
storyline.
just Rodgers, Brady. But in terms of actual game, Dolphins, Bills.
Battle of
We'll see.
two good teams. Beat some good teams so far. I agree.
Yeah. All right. So we'll cover that game, I'm sure, because that is a lot of fantasy storylines on the next week's preview show. That's going to do it for myself, Aidan Liquorie. That's Dave Terp. We've given you our picks. Hopefully this week we can go 4-0 on all our on the ones for our segments instead of these kind of 2-2 weeks we've been throwing through. But that's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys next week.